You can do what you want for your 15 minutes. No joke. Hey guys, welcome to yet another opportunity to hang out with us. We're glad you're here. Thanks for coming back for the second day. It's always, it builds confidence when you're at a 2-day conference and people come back the second day. You're like, oh, we didn't run anybody off. That's good. That's good. We did some things. This panel is all about STEM and CTE. There's a couple of questions that I was told we have to talk about, and then we can talk about whatever you want. As a matter of logistics, just to let you know, because that session went long this morning, not that it went long, just the schedule had them overlapping, so that ended at 10 and started at 10, so this got pushed back 15 minutes, but the entire morning is now pushed back 15 minutes. So the next session will start at 11:15, not at 11, so don't be freaking out that you're going to miss something, because I know it's a huge, arduous walk to get from here to across the way, but just so you know, it's not a fan of communication. So, and to tee this up, Greg asked that we sort of talked about how we got here, how we got to STEM, right? Because when I was in high school some number of years ago, that we don't even talk about STEM didn't exist, or at least we didn't call it STEM. But so I was a child I was born in 1983. So I was in, and some of you are shaking your head, yes, I know, it's not fair, but here we are. So when I went to high school in the 90s, VOTEC was a bad word. It was a bad word, and you were encouraged not to go into vocational technology programs. The kids who went to the VOTEC school for 3rd and 4th block were looked down on as, well, they're only going to be plumbers. You guys tried to call a plumber recently? Do you know what those people make? Okay, so we created our own issue. It's not surprising, right? So we made this vast overcorrection, as populace often does. We did this huge pendulum swing from here over here. And when I was in high school, we were told, if you don't go to college, you will not succeed in life. Every kid has to go to college. I think you said the other day that it was every kid, every graduation?
Every day, college.
Yeah.
That was the city school's motto for years.
Yeah, so it was, in order to succeed, you must go to college. That's what I was told. At least that's what I felt that I was told. And so, in this move, and again, I don't mean to say heretical things, I'm just saying my experience, and maybe some of you will agree. If you don't, just throw something at one of these two, and I'll stop talking about it. College isn't for every kid, and every kid is not for college. But we told kids they had to go to college, and we sent a whole generation of kids to college who were ill prepared to succeed in a collegiate environment. They did not possess the core basic math and science skills to be successful in entry-level college courses. Colleges doubled down almost overnight and created whole departments for placement. For issues that they had, there were always issues with that, but the junior college system was created to deal with that, right? To get kids who were not college ready to go to a university program. But even that was looked down. You can't go to junior college. That's for people who have low bars of success, right? You got to go to a 4-year university right out of the gate. And in doing that, we sent a whole bunch of kids to college that were not prepared for college, that quite frankly didn't need to go to college. I don't know if you looked at the current student debt number, but that's what happens when you tell kids you have to go get a degree, and they don't know why, but they go to do it because they're told if you don't, you won't be successful. And now I have a degree and I have no job, or I'm working in a field completely different than the degree I have because that wasn't the degree I needed, yada, yada, yada. So STEM comes along as a really important secondary means of getting kids ready for college. Science, technology, engineering, and math, to help kids learn those core skills that are going to help prepare them, because now everybody has to go to college. So we have to get them more college ready, and STEM was a great balm for that problem. But as we're all about to talk about in a second, and I know you already know, now the pendulum has swung completely in the opposite direction. And we prepared a whole bunch of kids to go to college. And now they have no idea what they're going to do with their life, because that didn't work out for them the way they thought it was going to. And so now, as districts, as educators, as industry, we're starting to look back and go, maybe this CTE thing thing, which is VOTEC called something else, but maybe CTE actually is the way to, maybe we should be looking in that direction. And so there's this gradual shift in some districts, I'm certainly seeing it in Polk County, not away from STEM, but to clarify and redefine STEM as career readiness. Right? Not necessarily college readiness, that's fine if that's your path, but career readiness. And so that's what we're charged to talk with today, or to talk about. And so the first question, and then I'm going to pass it off to these guys, is for folks who, maybe aren't, in the weeds, particularly at the district level or at the, program support level, what are the differences that you guys see between what I would call pure STEM education and CTE? What does that look like from a curriculum and support perspective?
All right. So my name is Heinrich. I am the Career Technical Education Supervisor for Collierville Schools in Collierville, Tennessee, right outside of Memphis. Many of you were in the session yesterday, so it's kind of a repeat. But a little background about our district. Our high school is roughly just under 3,000 students. It's the largest high school in Tennessee under one roof. We have an awesome CTE program, and we also have STEM. A little background about our STEM program. We have K through 8 STEM. K through 5, every student is getting access to STEM education in some fashion during their Lance periods. They may go to a STEM class 1 day a week, 2 days a week, depending on the school, but every student is getting a STEM education every year, K through 5. So it's not an elective or of any kind at the elementary level. It's part of their curriculum and what they do on a weekly basis. When they get to the middle school level, it does become a curriculum elective, where students can choose to take 6th, 7th, or 8th grade STEM. It's the Project Lead the Way curriculum that we use, and at the high school level, we have 4 levels of STEM as well. Now, what we are struggling with is, with STEM is, how does that fit in kind of what Eric was saying about CTE? We have 19 different CTE programs at our high school, and one of those is STEM. And something that we're coming to realize is that a lot of our students after 10th grade STEM, and some of this may be an LEA decision, but when we get to 11th grade, we have so many different, what we call in Tennessee, early post-secondary opportunities at the 11th and 12th grade level through dual enrollment, dual credit, AP courses, work-based learning, that STEM kind of loses its impact beyond 10th grade. What we are starting to think of as STEM is kind of an introduction into CTE at the high school level, at the 9th and 10th grade level. Through project-based learning, we use the SREB curriculum in the high school level. And that's serving as kind of an intro into our CTE pathways and dual enrollment options within those pathways after 10th grade. A couple other things I want to highlight too, just about Tennessee. Tennessee is highly invested in career and technical education for the foreseeable future. Governor Bill Lee, in his budget, included $500 million towards CTE education over the next 4 years that will essentially provide high schools with $1 million to do something innovative in CTE over the next 4 years, and middle schools are actually getting $500,000 apiece to do something innovative for the next 4 years. And this is largely driven by the economy and some of the investments that the state has made in some industry that is moving to Tennessee. Has anybody heard of Ford's Blue Oval City in West Tennessee? Hopefully my card will be loud. But Blue Oval City is a huge factory that they are building about 30 minutes north of Memphis. And it's going to employ tens of thousands of people to build it, and then an additional tens of thousands of people to work in it. And it's basically where they're going to be building electric vehicle. The brand new truck they've yet to name is going to be built there and manufactured there, as well as electric vehicle batteries and parts and things like that. So we're talking, the new age assembly line with robotic arms, and we need maintenance technicians to be able to operate those facilities and all those things. So all of this is happening in Tennessee, which spurs the investment in CTE over the next 4 years. And so that really helps to have the state funding that and having their funding behind some of the LEA decisions with CTE. And that's also kind of really helped us kind of relook at which programs we need to offer. Specifically with the $1 million that we are getting, we had a different grant to start our aviation program 2 years ago. And this is not necessarily related to aviation, but just from a perspective of CTE. we are starting what we're calling a mechatronics program of study, which is where students are going to be able to learn the skills to be able to operate PLCs, be maintenance technicians, and have the skills they need to be able to go and work in that Blue Oval City facility and other manufacturing facilities moving forward. So when you start thinking about new programs you're going to offer, we can't offer everything. And one of the ways that we're having, some of the approaches we're having to look at are, is STEM necessary for 4 years? STEM 1, 2, 3, and 4, all through high school. We definitely see a value in STEM. It can serve as kind of a survey course into different project-based learning type activities that lead to different career pathways at the high school level. But something else we're doing with this funding that we're getting is dropping career exploration courses in our middle schools alongside our STEM courses. So we are working to try to marry the two. I think they can coexist. But again, the way we're looking at it as a district, and this conversation is really timely because we were just meeting about this last week with district level admin about how we can look at STEM moving forward. STEM is not going to go anywhere. There are a lot of students that are interested in that. And again, we see this serving as kind of an intro into our CTE pathways at our high school level. But I think we are starting to become more intentional with providing students those clear pathways towards, and we use, a lot of times in Tennessee, you'll hear the phrase college and career ready. What we use in our district is career ready, because regardless whether you're going to be, whether you're in an AP computer science class or whether you're in our new mechatronics classes next year, the goal is to make every student career ready by the time they graduate. And the best way to do that is some combination of STEM in 9th and 10th grade in our mind, and then also very intentional pathways leading to jobs in the greater Memphis area and beyond in 11th and 12th grade.
My name is Dave Moorefield. I was born in 1966. Slightly for you. I should have been one of those kids in VOTEC, and I probably should go back to VOTEC. Obviously, with that griddle, yes. Yes, they nodded at me a lot and just smiled and go, yes, these are trained monkey, those good things. So, for us, STEM, the way we use STEM in our classrooms, I think many people here yesterday, you saw the presentation we gave. STEM for us, if you think about aviation as a whole, it encompasses everything in STEM, right? I mean, science, technology, engineering, math. And I tell that to my students all the time. I taught our classes in high school. And what I would do is I'd make it relatable to everything they learned in their other classes. Because that's what you really want. That's what your goal is when you teach a STEM, right? You want to show them the applicability of what that is and how it actually applies to everyday life. Well, how do you do that? And that's why aviation, I think, is such a good vehicle for STEM as a whole, because it does that. It incorporates everything. When you start talking about your earth sciences, you start talking about math. You know, you tell a kid about a 3D light cycle. Well, how do you figure out a 3D light cycle? Well, that's what you're going to have to figure out with math, right? And geometry. That's what you're going to shoot on an approach, the 3D light cycle. So it becomes this thing where they go, oh, okay, well that makes sense. There is really what I'm learning, and that's what the magic is with aviation and STEM. It welds those two things together, and students go, well, so what I'm learning really does apply to the rest of my life. And it's also critical thinking skills. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. Think about the critical thinking skills that go along with aviation. You know, if you put a student on a simulator and you say, okay, I want you to look at what the weather can be like. And you're talking about VTOLs, and say, okay, if you're doing your flight plan and the weather starts to descend, what's some of the things you can do? What are some of the critical thinking aspects you can do to ensure risk management, right? What kind of risk management you take? Am I going to make my flight plan so I go over different airports so if weather falls on me, I've got to use the app? You're starting to get them in that thought process of, okay, well, how does that apply to the rest of them? I gave an example yesterday. I would tell them, risk management is something you do every day and you realize you do it. And they go, well, how's that, Professor Moorefield? I said, okay, let's think about this. When you're getting ready to go outside in Florida, in the middle of the afternoon, what do? You look out and go, it's going to rain. Do you just walk outside and go, well, I just got to get to bed? No, you bring an umbrella. I said, why are you doing it? Well, you're mitigating the risk of getting soaked. That's risk management. That's mitigating the risk. So with all this part and parcel, but you have to do it in such a way that they start going, oh, well, that makes sense to me. I get that because I'm doing that every day. Again, that's what we're doing with our classes in aviation. Our drone classes, we do the very same thing. A lot of people go, well, why would you want to teach drones? Well, because everything that we're teaching them for drones overlays into aviation as a whole. Aerospace, weather, weight and balance, aerodynamics, they're all part of that. So even teaching them drone classes, getting them excited about that, is that first step to them going, wow, this is really cool. I've got an FAA license. I can fly a drone. What else can I do? That's the magic of it. That's the art of the possible. If you show them that, they start to flourish and become amazing. And that's all I got.
Yeah, Britt, you mentioned project-based learning, which I think is important. It's important to pause there for a second because applied incorrectly, STEM becomes another academic exercise where it's sit and get, and I'm using, I made the joke yesterday about using aviation in a word problem, because there was an airplane in it, so maybe you pay attention. But if we're not preparing our educators to be successful in STEM classrooms, it's the same issue that I talked about handing a math teacher a syllabus and saying, you're teaching the aviation elective next semester. I don't know what aviation is. I think we may, and not specifically any one group, and I don't know that we did it intentionally, but I think we may have done that with STEM where we said, okay, well, this is a STEM class because we said the word science a couple of times. But really, what STEM should be, good STEM when applied correctly, it should be project-based learning, it should be hands-on, there should be application that goes along with the sit and get portion, because I don't know if you've met any kids recently, but like the attention span of the average learner has dropped to like a negative number. There's just nothing there. I made the joke with some college professors the other day that I still see college professors putting in their syllabus, read chapter 3, and actually expecting that those 30 kids are going to read chapter 3 before Thursday's class. They are not going to read chapter 3. Let me just go ahead and fix that for you right now. You could put a gun to their head and say, read this, and they're not going to do it. So part of that is the learner, and part of that's the educator, and trying to find a way. My dad used to say this all the time. You have to get them where they are and then take them where you want them to go. If you start where you want them to go, you'll never connect with them. You'll never make that connection. But STEM to me is the ultimate way to get a kid's hands on an activity, whether it's like, how high can you build this Lego tower before it falls over? Something silly. But anything we do with STEM, it needs to have that hands-on component. I think we may have gone afoul of that several years ago and made it part of a normal academic classroom. Miss that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, and I think too, I know our teachers over here would say this, our STEM teachers that are here. I think on top of the skills you mentioned that STEM is teaching our kids, it teaches them collaboration, it teaches them how to work together as a team, it teaches them the soft skills they need. Our kids, not only do they not read, they don't know how to communicate because everything they do is on their phone, it's all digital, the person to person, especially coming out of the pandemic, those skills are just non-existent. Our middle school teachers would tell you that our 8th graders act like 6th graders. They have that social capacity of a 6th grader because for 2 years they didn't talk to anybody. But ultimately, and I hope I'm communicating this correctly on behalf of our STEM teachers, the most important thing that STEM is doing in the elementary for our district, middle and high school level, is it teaches kids that failure is okay. It is okay to not get it right the first time. Right.
Yeah, we say fail is first attempt in learning. Yes.
Right.
Tell our kids. I'd rather you fail and push yourself than take your safe. We have some really smart kids who can, I know how to do this, but I want you to push yourself. I'd rather you fail at a higher level than take the safe route.
And instilling that in them, which again, our district doing this as young as kindergarten, we've seen the product of that now that we've been doing this for about 5 years. Of course, 2 of those were pandemic driven. But failure is okay, is really the message we want to drive home. And we are a high achieving school district. There's a lot of pressure from parents for their kids to go to a 4-year school. It's taken a lot of convincing on behalf from us as admin to the community that CTE is a viable pathway to great jobs. A lot of that is going out into the community, doing presentations, talks like this, where you guys would be parents instead, going to board meetings, Rotary Club meetings, and just getting the message out there, hey, these are all the programs that are offered. It's essentially all free through grants. And your kids can come out of this with an industry certification and be making $60,000, $70,000 a year right out of high school. And there should not be a shadow cast on these professions either. And so convincing parents that all of this is viable and a legitimate pathway to a long-term sustainable career has been a challenge, but that's something that we work on every day as a district. But again, STEM, teaching kids that failure is okay. There are a lot of important values in STEM, so don't take my previous comments about CTE as bashing STEM and thinking that it's not necessary. It absolutely is. But channeling what they learn in STEM at a young age, having implemented it all the way down as young as kindergarten, and then helping them find that pathway when they get to the high school level in CTE.
I think pathways aren't just about high school students finding jobs. It's about kindergartners realizing they have a lot of learning ahead of them and being engaged from that point forward. That's a great point. You know, STEM can be, if we look at it the right way, a great channeling pathway agent to keep kids engaged and to actually get them set up on a pathway so they're not 18, 20, 25 years old going, what do I want to do with my life? You know, we can put that in front of them at an earlier age, and that's great. Dave, I know that you guys do a lot of program setup and program support through your work. Can you talk about the setup process? And I definitely want to come back to you on this too, but can you talk about that, the school district who's like, okay, we're trying to figure out who we're going to be when we grow up. I don't mean that offensively. I'm just saying, like, what do we want to morph into? What's our 2.0 or our 3.0? Can you talk about the challenges inherent in, like Brett mentioned, you know, community involvement and community buy-in? What does that setup process look like, and what are the challenges that districts and even, you know, educators in the classroom are going to have to overcome in starting a new STEM or CTE program?
So for us, what happens a lot of times is we'll have a school district or a school itself reach out to us and go, you know what, I want some of the aviation stuff. I don't know where it is, but I know I want it. And we're like, okay, well, what were you thinking? They're like, I have no idea, but just give me what you got. So then the conversation starts, and usually goes something along the lines of, well, what's your idea of what you want your program to be? Because there's a lot of ways we can facilitate and help those high schools and school districts build that program. But the biggest thing is we've got to get in there and ask them what they see as their ultimate goal, right? So whenever you're doing anything, we go into school, and I like to kind of do it as a project. It's okay, what's your goal for that senior? Is that senior something you want him or her being prepared to go to an aviation school? Doesn't have to be in rural, because we're not there to recruit for him to rural. But are they going, do you want to go to aviation school? Do you want to just have the exposure to STEM? So when you start walking that backwards, it becomes a little bit clearer for them. And we try to do that as best we can, but sometimes we have to leave that down there. And we'll say, well, here's some ideas that you can use to build out your STEM program. And for us, a lot of times, it's like a journey of flight to start with an introduction into aviation, which is a subject control-based project. And then we move them into our AS-120, 220, which is introduction to aviation and introduction to drones. But it's really kind of to lead them down the path going, here is the art of the possible. Here's what you can do to build out your program. And here's what's going to get you. And a lot of times they'll go, yeah, that sounds great, but I was thinking about doing a maintenance thing. We've had this discussion just recently, which is, and we were just talking about it earlier, one of the biggest challenges is for the maintenance side of the house, which is, and I will tell you, that here's actually from the horse's mouth, not the butt, but how the mouth, was one of the guys who works at the AMS building, Aviation Maintenance Sciences in Real, was the maintainer. He was a crew chief on Air Force One, now teaches for our school. Fantastic guy. And he was telling us that he's got students who are leaving just before they leave senior year, getting jobs within 2 years, making $100,000. Okay? Now, never in I was an aircraft mechanic in the Air Force. Now, when I left, I knew it was a good job. I was like, hey, I can go do that and make $50,000, $60,000. Now it's $100,000, you know? So when people think about those types of jobs, when you talk about like the plumbers, mechanics, no one thinks about that. I mean, that's the third of those things, like, well, I don't want my son to be a mechanic. You know, or my daughter. You know, your daughter's not gonna be a mechanic. I mean, and it's not the days of turning some greasy wrench. I mean, you're actually just changing boxes. So it's a much different environment. One of the biggest things when it comes to that, when they go, well, I want to start a maintenance program, is, well, do you have the space and do you have the availability to put an airplane in? No. Well, it's going to be hard to do a maintenance program. So that's what I say. Sometimes we have to kind of, tailor their expectations of what they want to do, and sometimes we can help them with that. We give them creative ideas. But it really is a challenge sometimes for them because they don't know what they don't know. And it's not a knock on school districts, they just don't know what they don't know.
I was just going to share the biggest barrier and opportunity at the same time is it's driven by the teachers. It's driven by who you have that can either meet the criteria or has the experience or the background. The worst scenario, and I think it's been mentioned before, is when you get a superintendent or a principal who says, I want aviation. I don't know what it looks like, I don't know what it is, but I want aviation. And oh, by the way, you're my rock star science teacher. Here you go, you're gonna be aviation teacher, right? And so that's the biggest challenge, because those programs right off the bat are going to be a battle because you don't have that teacher buy-in. Now, oftentimes the teachers will buy in, but it takes time. The other biggest challenge is we have folks who teach from the industry. So you have teachers that don't necessarily have the industry experience and background, and you can train all day long, but pedagogically they are rock stars in the classroom. Then you have folks from industry who come from industry and they know their stuff. Like they know, they've lived it, they've breathed it, they know their stuff, but they don't have a clue about pedagogy. We've had fighter pilots literally almost in tears saying, I'm not doing it anymore. I quit, I'm not doing it anymore. They don't listen to me. And it's like, okay, so the sweet spot when you have a CTE program, because you need that industry experience, the sweet spot is when you have that individual where you either train them up in the industry experience and background, and they have the pedagogy, and you make sure that you provide your industry experts with the pedagogy, classroom management, all the rest of that, because if they can't connect to the kids, it doesn't matter how much experience they have in the industry, it's not going to happen. So kind of bringing those two pieces together in any CTE program, I don't care what the specialty, whether it's aviation or robot, whatever it might be, it's the blend of the pedagogy and the industry experience. And oftentimes that is the biggest challenge.
And I
probably any CTE program.
I guess I've experienced this. I came from industry, and I got in the classroom, and I was telling somebody that thing last night. I said, my kids looked at me and they said, "You're going to teach high school back?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" Just like that. They go, "You raised us. You sure you want to teach high school?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I'll be okay." And my wife even goes, "Honey, are you sure you want to teach high school?" It's like, why does everybody keep asking that question? You all need to sit down and be quiet and let me this. So I came from industry. Now, Dave Root back here, he was a teacher, he's got CFI, he's one of our rock star teachers. He's an easy person to bring in and onboard. I will tell you, if you were to come on board with us and you go through our AGI class, you have the great fortune of me being your instructor. I say that tongue in cheek. But I see
shocked with applications going on.
Yeah. But I have to laugh because when I get teachers, I might as well speak in Chinese. I mean, really. Think about aviation. Aviation is a totally different language, right? So if I'm talking about ailerons and Bruce principle, I might as well say, "Wo ye hao?" And they're like, "Oh, what is this whole thing with the airplane doing?" So it's very difficult, and you have to be very empathetical to people who are coming on board like that and go, "Okay, I get it. This is a very difficult topic to understand." When you've not done it for 30, 40 years. So we try as best we can to provide that training and that comfort level for those instructors who are the ones that got the booger clicked on and go, "Okay, you're my aviation teacher." And they're like, "Okay, cool, how do I do that?" So that is probably one of the hardest things about it.
So just out of curiosity, how many of you guys here work in a school that either has workforce academies or CTE programs embedded within gen ed in the same building, the same school. Okay, so for you guys, do your teachers plan together, or do they plan separately? How many of you plan together?
This is the
Meaning
first,
gen ed and CTE plan
this is the
together.
first year we haven't had a common plan. I think we're going back because it's just contract. But the three of us have taught together for so many years.
Right. That was the thing that again, I don't have a background in secondary education. I came from industry like you, and then went into collegiate, and then like went into secondary, and I was like, how do you even do this? I mean, why? Why would you do this? And I'm glad that people do it. I'm glad that people do it. It just, it never clicked for me. But the thing that blew my mind about our Central Florida Aerospace Academy, the first one, and was that our second principal started doing co-planning for the teachers. So the math, science, history, like all the gen ed teachers were in planning with all the CTE. I told you guys yesterday, for you, there's 6 different tracks. Everybody plans together, which originally the teachers fought against. They were like, this is a waste of time. These people are talking about airplanes, and the airplane people were like, these people are talking about pedagogy. I don't know what. I don't even know what that means. Exactly to your point. What happened though after the first year is that the CTE teachers learned how to do classroom management, and the gen ed teachers learned how to get kids engaged in math and science. So they saw retention and increased enrollment in the CTE programs. So if you're not doing co-planning, at least think about it, or try it, or see if people would. It blew my mind. It was such an obvious thing to do. But to your point about people being on either side of the spectrum, which is totally true, that really brought all of that toward the middle of the group together. So I would encourage you to do that. And if you're kind of on your own out in your own land, reach out to your peers and ask, hey, can I come join the math group when they get together? I'd just like to come and sit and sort of learn from you guys. I think it builds some connection. And it's just something I observed as being a way that sort of narrowed that playing field. I want to sort of end us up so that we have enough time to talk with you guys, and we'll try to do some of that. But Brett, if you want to talk about the future, and you talked a little bit about this in your specific district, but I'm sure you talk to your peers and you go to conferences where your peers gather and talk about, I don't know, what is it that CT directors talk about? No, I'm kidding. I'm just joking. That's a joke. These kids. But if you could talk about sort of the future and what's coming, and as we look at all of these new emerging segments, particularly aviation, eVTOL, the things that are coming down the road, what's the future for us in the education sphere to be ready for that?
Yeah, so I think that for us in our district, again, just speaking for our district, our next big initiative is going to be work-based learning, where students are going to be getting internships, paid apprenticeships, paid internships, being able to leave school during the school day. We're going to leverage our new block schedule where students are on a 4x4 block. When they have 4 classes a semester, they finish that class in the semester. Ultimately, that frees students up to earn 4 more credits over 4 years than they otherwise would have been able to earn under a traditional schedule. And so by the spring of their senior year, they should only really have 1, maybe 2 classes that they have to take by law. And that frees them up basically the rest of the day to go out and work. And by that point, they would have taken multiple dual enrollments. They would be a concentrator in a specific program of study and have multiple industry certifications, and being able to take those out into the community and work with our partners in industry, either as an internship or a paid internship. Can give you an example of this, of what's happening right now. Give the presentation yesterday. We have students that are earning flight hours at our partner flight school during the school day through a work-based learning period. They're leaving our campus at 1 o'clock, which is their 5th grade class. They're in a work-based learning class, which means they're earning high school credit for this, and they're also going and getting flight hours at our flight school, tying it directly into aviation. Next year, through a partnership with FedEx, which is related to flight, we are working with FedEx, and it is official, but we haven't decided who the students will be. We have about 22 students in our welding program, which is dual enrollment through a local community college. Students are earning their AWS certifications there. And we have a partnership with FedEx where they're gonna have 10 paid, they don't call them internship positions, so I guess they have a very distinct definition of what an internship is, but that's what we're calling it. It's a paid internship position for 10 of our welding students to go to FedEx's hub at the airport. They're going to be working on repairing dollies in any of those non-motorized vehicles that you will see on the tarmac at the airport that have to get repaired in the fabricator's lab. They're going to be assigned a mentor there who works for FedEx as a welder, and they're going to work with them during school hours all year long in a work-based learning period, getting paid to do it. And not only that, FedEx is also working on giving them work experience credit. Right now, to be a fabricator at FedEx, a welding fabricator at their airport, you have to have 2 years of work experience before you can be hired as a fabricator. But the combination of their dual enrollment, industry certification, and then their internship, they're working on giving them credit for those 2 years through that, making them immediately hireable at FedEx as soon as they graduate as a welding fabricator at 18 years old. So that's what we're trying to replicate with all of our CTE programs. I think work-based learning is the future. Flexible scheduling, allowing students to start their career pathways. We're giving them everything they need right now through certifications and training and dual enrollment at the high school level, and letting them get a head start, not just on college or technical training, but also workforce as well. And the economy is driving that. Companies are reaching out to us all the time saying they need workers, they can't find anybody, how can we make this happen? So the combination of the demand from the economy, from our local businesses and organizations to us creating a flexible schedule and allowing students to do that. And I'll talk more about, I'm on the panel this afternoon, and that's going to kind of be the focus of that is work-based learning, but that's really the future for us as a district. We've done a lot of work in building these pathways and fleshing them out over the last 4 or 5 years, and work-based learning is now going to be the fruits of that labor that our teachers and students have put in. So that's kind of where we're headed with CTE.
What an awesome opportunity. You know, in Polk County this year, the school board placed over 500 students in internships in the community in a similar work-based learning program. And the school board requires a minimum a wage for those students of $50 per hour. And most, this was nuts to me, but most of the employers are saying they're competing to get enough of the kids because they don't have the workforce they need. But these kids are coming out with industry certifications and they're ready to go to work. And the employers are actually paying them very close to starting wage while they're still in high school, which is an awesome try before you buy experience for the employer to see who they are and see if they're a good fit. But I mean, 18 years old and you're in the fab lab at FedEx. I mean, what else do you want to do with your career? I mean, what do you want next? You know, you're pretty much, there's a buffet line in front of you, options to choose from after that. Yes, ma'am.
So I teach 8th grade, and we always go and tour the high school. And my student population, most of those families are pushing them towards 4-year university, traditional, out of very well off, but anyways. But we come back, and I'm like, y'all gotta think about this. Do you want CTE? I said, right now you think, oh, mommy and daddy are gonna pay for my 4-year university, and da-da-da-da. I said, you don't know what the future holds. So why not, before we had aviation, go get your CNA degree, and you can work as a CNA while in nursing school and come out debt-free and be way better off than all these.
And a lot of these healthcare providers will offset some or all of the costs of nursing school for you if you go to work for them.
You're talking about all these kids who have, I was fortunate enough to have parents who helped, but come out with student debt out the wazoo. You don't know, and I don't want to be morbid, but like, you don't know that daddy's gonna be there when you graduate high school. You don't know that daddy's still gonna have a job when you graduate high school. I said, so that's, don't think of it as, oh, I don't want to be just X, Y, Z. Think of it as a door that opens another door.
Well, it's supply and demand, right? So you can come out with a generic degree that everybody else has, and you're all fighting for the same entry-level job in the 40-50 space. Or you could go into a specialized field that, just to be honest, requires way less time to entry. I mean, an A&P program is between 12 and 18 months, depending on how you do it, for, to walk into a $65,000 a year job. I mean, dispatch, if you want to be an aircraft dispatcher, it's between you know, depending on how you do it, whether it's online, remote, or it's in person, let's just say it's 10 weeks to get your FA dispatcher certificate. That's an entry wage of $65,000 for 10 weeks of education. Now, is that the hardest class you're ever going to take in your life in 10 weeks? Yes, it is. It's an ATP knowledge test. Yeah, it's insane. But if you prepare and you get through that, that's a job you can take anywhere, and you're set up for success. So it's supply and demand, it's economics. But I agree with you. I see that as an issue.
They have now the means to change careers, well, can afford to change careers.
Right. Yes, sir.
Hey, Eric, I went to, when I described it, you know which school district it was. I went to high school, it's Northern Illinois School District, famous for being basically a prep school. How do you manage the disdain that many of these parents have? I'm going to use the word disdain for CTE, anything that doesn't point their kid towards Harvard or Yale or some low-end school like Lake Forest College. So, anyway, on a serious note, how do you overcome that? Because even to this day, even in today's economy, there's a real, that's a great school. Right?
Sure.
How do you overcome it?
I know Brad has an answer for this question because we already talked about it, but tell me.
Well, I heard it, but I just,
Well, yeah, I would just, that's a battle we have in our district every day. You know, every parent, you know, not specifically every parent, but the vast majority of our parents, they've been told they're going to go to Ole Miss, they're going to go to UT, they're going to go to wherever in the SEC, and that's what they're going to do. And we have kids, multiple kids go to Ivy League schools. We have Rhodes Scholars every year. You know, we've got National Merit Scholars every year. Their goal is to get that 36 on the ACT. That is the population, the vast majority of the population in our district. What has made a difference has been putting dollar signs in front of parents at community meetings and letting them know this is how much they will make when they choose this pathway, and it won't cost them a thing while they're in high school. Communicating that just over and over. Last year I went to every PTA meeting for every school in our district and presented that information. Rotary meetings, Chamber of Commerce meetings, where we put that out there to businesses. And also to chime in on what Anna said earlier, we believe that work-based learning will also help this because students will see it as an incentive. Well, I don't have to take a BS elective my senior year. I can enroll in work-based learning, but it has to be tied to the CTE pathway. And so then they get that work experience their senior year, which again, they're starting in the fall before they commit to any school, and then they can kind of push that decision because they're getting that hands-on experience, not just in the classroom, which we have under one roof, but they're also getting it in the community with a partner who's saying, I'm paying you now and I'll pay you this when you graduate, because you already have all these things that high school's provided you. So I think channeling it, again, through work-based learning is going to help with this as well, as serving as an incentive, a scheduling incentive for a student, but also putting those dollar signs in front of parents and students. And to chime in on that, counselors are so important in this process. Our guidance counselors at all of our high school and then all of our other schools, because they're the ones who meet with students on a regular basis. They pick up classes with them, and so giving them that information to then share with students and parents when they're working with them every day is also a powerful thing that we've done. So we're not there yet. We're still battling it, but those are some of the things that we've done and are planning to do to help battle it in the future.
We taught careers a lot in middle school, and they research, like, not even, we have our career fair every day, but even like in our flight space, like look at a field that you, or even in STEM, pick any STEM career, research it, what do they make, give me 10. And it's amazing that some of them are like, oh, I didn't realize that was a STEM career, and I didn't realize what they made, and those are not typical four-year universities. So our kids kind of know options, and our kids are not bashful, they'll tell your parents or just houses. So this is what I want to do. I want to do this. They can start little.
Highlighting your alumni too is important. You know, highlighting on social media and wherever else you can, stories of your alumni who go on and they're actually working in the field and they're successful, that there's actually a pathway that ends in a career. It's not just a class. We're the worst at telling our own story. So we just need to get better at telling our story.
We have a CTE young lady who's CTE education, and she has a full ride to Ole Miss because she wants to be a teacher. And she was in the CTE program.
I will actually say this, Tim. The one thing I think that we, and I prior military, so this is not a push to send your kids to the military, but I think one of the discussions that really should be had is, if you talk about debt, right? Okay, I have 3 kids, and 2 of my boys went in the military, GI Bill, I had a GI Bill, I was able to pass my GI Bill down to my daughter. They've got skills, they've got stuff they learned in the military. I was an aircraft mechanic, which transitioned into other things within that. So I think sometimes a conversation should be had with some younger kids going, hey, have you thought about this? Like, for instance, I know for Florida, if they want to join the Air National Guard, they go to state school for free. It's paid for. So I think we need to reevaluate some of that sometimes and go, you know, there are options. In life, there's always going to be sacrifice. Now, it doesn't mean that we're trying to have our kids sacrifice their lives, but I mean, it's time, it's effort, and I try to tell them return on investment. You can get into flight training many different ways. You can go into the military, okay, and you get all that training, and you can get it for, I'll use the air quotes, for free. Now, what's your payback? About 10 years of your life is going to be in the military. Or you can invest $250,000 in the flight training and college, and then you're going to be repaying that over the next 30, 40 years. But some way, somehow, you're making an investment and you've got to be ready for it. So it behooves us to go, you know what, have you thought about that option? And it's not a bad option. And it's not for everybody, I understand it, but for some kids, it's probably not bad.
But it behooves us as educators and counselors to that point about putting those options. That is, to me, that is our greatest responsibility, is to say, here are the options. Which of these things interest you, and let me point you in the right direction. We got to stop, guys. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. I'm sure